Okay, so in chapter 6, we get introduced to 3 different formulas that we use to calculate flow rate. We'll use it to calculate the infusion pump, milliliters over hours. We'll use it to calculate time. So our first formula, we'll call it formula 1. We've got the drip rate. And so this is our standard drip rate formula. We'll have it as numbers of milliliters times my drop factor all over the number of minutes. And this could be 60 minutes if it's 1 hour, it could be 15 minutes if it's a quarter hour, and this will give us our answer in drops per milliliter. And so where this formula comes from, it's just our flow rate times our drop factor, and that's it. So if you find your flow rate and you have your drop factor, you're absolutely set. Your drop factor is given to you. Your flow rate can be calculated or given to you. Set that up and you are golden. The other 2 formulas that we use is the infusion pump formula. Our infusion pumps, they calculate every time, all the time on the machine in milliliters per hour. And so it's just a standard numbers of milliliters divided by number of hours gives me milliliters over hours, or milliliters over hour. And this is just like analogy, like miles per hour. If I take my miles divided by my hours, I get miles per hour. If I want to find out how long something takes to finish, I can use my hours formula. And so my hours formula is observed as number of milliliters divided by numbers of milliliters per hour gives me number of hours. And so we had looked at this earlier in class and we said, okay, well, that's kind of a funny way to look at it. That's a really weird formula. But if we take the example that we use, we said, hey, if I've got this IV bag and there's 1,000 milliliters in this IV bag and it flows at a rate of 500 milliliters per hour. So every time 1 hour goes by, on the clock, 500 milliliters move from this IV bag to this person. Okay, fine. So 500 milliliters in the first hour, 1 hour goes by, and then my second hour, hour 2 goes by, and another 500 milliliters are moved from the IV bag to the person. And so it takes me 2 hours to pump 1,000 milliliters into this person at a rate of 500 milliliters per hour. Okay, so I wrote it this way, and this all means the same thing. So flow rate can be written as 500 milliliters per hour if it's via infusion pump, and it means 500 milliliters for every 1 hour of time that goes by. And so when we look at our formula, which was number of milliliters over number of milliliters per hour gives me the number of hours. We use that here, but instinctively. We said, hey, 1,000 milliliters, 5 milliliters per hour, 2 hours go by, 500 and 500, that's 1,000 milliliters, that it would take me 2 hours. What I did, if I was to plug this into my formula to give me the same answer, I would take 1,000 milliliters divided by my rate, so my number of milliliters down here. My number of milliliters is 1,000 milliliters, that's how much I'm pumping in. My rate, my number of milliliters per hour, here's my milliliters per hour. And this has to be the same units. I have to have milliliters over here, and I have to have milliliters over here, or it could be drops here, it could be drops here, but I can't do milliliters up here and drops over here. It doesn't mean the same thing. I can't tell you, oh, I've got 1,000 milliliters, it's moving at 20 drops per hour. You can't do that in your head. You would have to convert that out. So I've got 1,000 milliliters as my number of milliliters divided by number of milliliters per hour, which is 500 milliliters per hour, gives me 2. So here we've got this set up where it's like, okay, really wordy, but long story short, if I take my volume, my milliliters per hour, and divide it by how fast it's going, here's 500, I can find out how long it takes time-wise for this to finish, how long before this medication leaves the IV bag and gets into the patient. So let's take a look at our first question.